Hello, everyone. We are here back again on Industry 4.0 Club with our manufacturing future. Um, we're today going to talk a little bit about ChatGPT, and I'm here joined with Jason Bean from our Industry 4.0 Club, and again, also joined by my co host, Ira Sharp. And we are not going to focus so much of Sam Altman's little trip he had for a couple weeks ago, etc. But we're going to look at something that came out of the OpenAI's developer conference that I have had very little time to play with, but I know Jason had spent some time on this, which is custom GPTs, personal GPTs. So that's a interesting topic and something that we think once it fully matures could be very interesting for manufacturing to look at as well. But it probably needs a little bit of maturing. But just quick here, as introduction, when I'm not here with these great people presenting and talking about Industry 4.0 Club, my name is Jan Pingle, and I am a product leader for digital solutions at Ingersoll Rand, equipment manufacturer, where we utilize IoT to make our equipment smart and connected. Jason, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jason Bean. So when I'm not engaged with the people at this club, I am the industry 4 specialist for Pepperl and Fuchs, and I am also the founder of Empath Consulting, my own business, which focuses on educating employers on neurodiverse employees and how to bring them into their organizations.
And Ira?
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Ira Sharp, and so outside of the club here, I'm actually the director of marketing at Phoenix Contact. And specifically today, what I've been doing when I'm not on this live stream here, as you can see with my very festive PLC Next sweater, is right on the other side of this office wall here. We're having our Christmas potluck, so we're enjoying a little bit of the holiday season here in the Phoenix Contact offices. But otherwise, I'm on the club here, co-hosting with Yen in the future of manufacturing and talking about all things that are forward looking in the manufacturing space. So I think it's a great topic today, and I really look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say forward looking, that's definitely what this topic is all about. We've seen here over the pretty much a year now. I think the first official public useful version of OpenAI ChatGPT was about November last year. So we're talking about close to a year now where we've been talking about this topic, trying to see where it all goes. And various different companies have developed solutions that we kind of play with both for creating documents, marketing, conversations, graphics, images, video, etc. All kinds of different stuff in this particular arena here that I think it's proven itself. I think at this point that it's not just a short-term fad, but something that's going to be staying with us for a while and just needs to mature a little bit more. But that's what it is. But again, this session here today is I think Jason reached out a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, we should talk about this topic because it is showing some interesting aspects that I think we could show here." And just as a main introduction, I think the idea that was introduced over a month ago right now at the OpenAI's developer conference was the idea of personal GPTs or custom GPTs. And really what it means is that everybody is in the thought process of, can I create something like a bot or something with some specific knowledge that I can then use as a part of my application or my customer interaction or whatever it is, or my employee interactions, whatever that is, right? But the tools were not really there to do it, and so now what OpenAI has introduced, but the tools from OpenAI, I guess there was APIs, there was developers could develop something, but OpenAI has now introduced the idea of anybody can go in if they're using the latest version of OpenAI's ChatGPT. They can now go in and create what's called a GPT, so really a custom definition with some specific learning that can then respond in a specific way that you have defined with it to be a tool to help out. we're going to talk a little bit about different aspects of it, and also some examples of. So we're kind of thinking through how could this be used. But I just want to put a disclaimer in here right away. I think we talked about it between the three of us a couple of times. Is that this is a technology that's evolving. I think Jason has seen specific companies that have started to introduce this type of product into the market. And I just want to make sure that, especially from a manufacturing perspective, that we're aware that there's still significant issues around IP, around security, around other things that I want to make sure that we're showing some ideas that could be used in the future. But as a company, as a manufacturer, you still got to be a little bit careful of what it is that you can introduce into your environment, and make sure that you fully understand what the impact could be. So if it's something not nefarious information that can provide some information to users, maybe you can use it more or less as it is today. But if you're thinking about, I'm going to put my equipment drawings or something into a system or whatever, and then maybe the time is not yet. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to hand it over to Jason here. And if you can give us a little bit of a introduction to how you got started with this after that developer conference, and what you kind of have seen so far. And then I think you're going to show an actual example so we can see how it's actually used.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons I kind of wanted to breach this topic was, since the developer conference, I've actually now encountered 3 companies in the field that are offering to build custom GPTs for manufacturers and actually trying to sell it to them. One of the problems is there are security issues. You can actually trick the GPT into divulging the custom instruction set. You can get it to divulge which documents it's been trained on. You can actually even get it to provide you a download link for those documents. So manufacturers need to be aware, especially if they don't have an IT department where they have security compliance already in place and where their software goes through an assessment, that they need to really vet some of these newer AI companies that are coming out to ensure that they're not going to be exposing any sensitive material. Because when you create the GPT, you have once you go to save it, you have 3 options: personal use, anyone with a link, or public. Most companies would probably be picking anyone with a link, expecting that it for their employees. Now, anybody with that link, it's just a URL link that anybody can share. There's no security on it whatsoever. So anybody that's using it can easily start asking to divulge that information. Now, I've been working alongside some AI companies now for the past couple of years, so I've seen legitimate generative AI solutions for manufacturing that have all the security compliances in place. The manufacturer gets a secured server. Their data is locked in. You can get 2-factor authentication for individuals to get in. But with ChatGPT, there's been this increase in companies that are building solutions based off what's available in the general marketplace for ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think it highlights specifically around the maturity, right? I'm very confident that this technology is going to be put into the OpenAI solutions that are secure, the enterprise versions, etc. And also there are going to be ways to identify within the GPT what you are allowed to disclose, yeah, and et cetera, et cetera. Right, but right now I think it's an interesting playground to be in and see what it can be utilized for, and maybe prepare for. And I think I can see a lot of people that have access to GPT, because a lot of companies are now blocking all these generative AI systems right now to make sure that they're not unintentionally disclosing any information, just because of the maturity is not fully there yet. But the ones that have access to it might be at least looking at generating maybe some personal GPTs that they're going to be able to play with, and just learn more and be able to utilize that as a part of their daily improvements and etc. But there's still some maturity things that needs to be in place before this becomes mainstream for sure. So good points there, Jason. And again, also the warning around if somebody out there is saying that they can generate or they can help develop a GPT within ChatGPT for you, then it will be in the same environment that Jason's been playing with. That means that all the areas of issues that you've identified is still going to be there as well.
And with all this, it's interesting to me because when I think about AI as a whole, AI isn't new. It's been thrust into the mainstream, and a lot of it has been through this generative AI. Whether it be the ChatGPT, and then there's of course the other types of platforms that you mentioned, like image generation and these kind of things. But when I think of manufacturing, it's I'm curious, Jason, where you're going to go with this, because typically with manufacturing, we want to have a closed box, and it's not so much generative. You want to play within your playground. So, be curious to see where you see manufacturing actually using more of this generative side of the AI versus using ML, which is kind of like a fixed application that you're just refining over and over and over again to get a better yield or get a better result of a defined process. So yeah, some things I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. One of the areas I think manufacturers can really benefit from generative AI is in employee training. That's one of the reasons I started playing with the GPTs, was for my personal business, was to how do I take the training courses that I deliver to my clients and create them so they're more accessible, and that they actually adapt to the individual learner versus being a closed one box fix all training system. Right. So
yeah,
currently the way if somebody wanted me to go in and train, I have to go in, we take a boardroom, we go through some sessions and stuff like that. And I was just looking, okay, how do I take my training online and make it more accessible? And the GPT seemed like a very natural progression for that. I've not fully developed a GPT I would release to people yet, but I do have one that is in development for training, and I can show a little bit of how that works and how that was built, so people are aware. But basically anything in your business that is language based, whether it's written documents or whether it's verbal communication, generative AI and large language models have a place there to augment and enhance that area.
Yeah.
Well, if you can have a Jason Bean GPT and I can ping your brain and everything that you got going on with the book and everything else you've done, sign me up. So I'm sure I can learn quite a bit. So.
Well, I haven't been able to emulate my brain yet, but
you got to go to Elon Musk with that request. Hey, I just want to maybe a level set here, just so everybody is on the same page here. When we're talking about a custom GPT, what do we really mean? And so with ChatGPT today and most of the other generative AI systems, if that's graphics, image generation, whatever it is, it's typically based on a conversation. So you go in and you start talking to the AI on the other end, identifying what it is you're looking for, providing all the different content that you wanted to evaluate, and then it comes back with a result. And the difference here between like search, I mean, that's one of the main things that came out when it originally came out. With search, you'll get a list of different references and links. Here you get a response. You get an actual physical response you can then utilize and use to something. And it could be, if you could ask to generate a report, it would generate a report. If you ask it to generate an image, it will generate an image, etc. Right? So that's how this whole generative AI works. You go online, you have a conversation, and you can have follow-up questions and comments that then improves the output of that specific conversation. The thing that happens then is that you then close it down, and then you open up again and you start a new conversation. You're back to square one, and that new conversation doesn't know all the other content you already put into it. You're starting with, here's a new request, new content. give me another response back on that particular thing. And then that conversation can go on and on for a while as well. The idea of the custom GPT is, as Jason mentioned before, if you have some existing content that you feel can be utilized to provide answers to somebody that's on the other end asking a question, you can now generate or define a custom GPT within ChatGPT Plus, I think it's called, or OpenAI Plus. You can then, first of all, tell what it is that GPT is to you, what it's supposed to do, how it's going to respond, what it's going to respond to, and then you can provide that content to say, base your responses on that particular content that I'm then going to provide. You can then going to upload that content, and then that GPT has that learning that you now provided, that you can then hand to somebody else. So, for example, like if I have a conversation with ChatGPT and I get to a great result, and I said, "Hey, Jason, can you continue that conversation?" That's not how it works. It's my conversation. It's not Jason's. But with the ChatGPT, if I create a GPT and I put all this stuff in it and say, "Here's all the content you can use to be able to respond to it," I can now give that GPT to Jason, and he can now use that with what I put into it. And so that's where the difference between using standard ChatGPT today by going onto OpenAI and having a conversation compared to now generating a GPT you can share with others, or you can use it yourself. So whenever you go back in and say, to open that particular GPT, you're basing all the results based on what it is you learned it. So even if it's a personal one, you still have it preloaded with all the content you put into it, and your conversation starts there, as opposed to starting from scratch as they would do when you go into a standard chat GPT dialogue and converse with it. So I know, Jason, if you want to maybe kind of give us a little bit example of what you've been doing while you're playing with it, so people can get a feel for how you would go in and generate your personal GPT.
Well, let's see if this share screen works.
Yep.
Okay, it looks like it's up.
There we go.
Okay, so Jan mentioned, to actually create GPTs, you have, or to even use them right now, you have to be a GPT Plus subscriber. So if you haven't seen ChatGPT's interface, which I would doubt many have not seen it, this is your standard chat window in which you can talk to. But if you want to create a GPT, you have to jump over to Explore, and it'll come up. So these are a number of different GPTs I've been playing with. Some will be deleted because it's just all test. Then you get a list of a bunch that were created by OpenAI. But most recently, I've been working on this, which is my training one. So if I go, sorry, they've changed the interface. If I go into edit, when you want to create, you just communicate through the create here by asking questions to ChatGPT, stating what you want it to do. You can ask it to help you actually create the instructions. And then in the configure tab, so what it's doing when you're communicating with it is it's filling in, it's generating this instruction that appears right here. So when it's doing that through that interaction of use, every interaction, it will update and change this. So I like the interface when you're first brainstorming an idea, but when you're trying to really fine tune it, it actually works better if you actually move away from the interface and actually start fine tuning this instruction yourself.
Yeah, and that's another interesting aspect, I think, too, is that so people that have started using ChatGPT and OpenAI from a industry perspective have been able to utilize the enterprise version of it, and they've been able to use that, like the APIs, to generate a bot, for example, or whatever it is. So you can have programmers that's been coding this, they've been generating some code in order to interact with the API, generate a specific structure there, load it with some content, and now get the right responses back. But this interface here is similar to all the other interfaces. It's a conversation. You are instructing what the system what it is you want it to do by having a conversation with it as well, right? So this is basically democratizing the idea of generating uh, 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 these type of systems, as opposed to as it is today or before this, that you still had to get a programmer to develop an application that would interface with the API and then come back with the right responses. Is that a good analogy, Jason?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So if you notice when you're creating the instructions, though, what you want to start with is a role and goal of what the GPT is going to be. So it's what it's going to behave like, what knowledge base, constraints, guidelines, clarification, personalization. The more you structure this and actually give it headings, the easier it is for the GPT to perform. Now, the other thing is here under knowledge, this is where you can load your personal knowledge base, whatever that be, whether it be machine operating instructions, employee onboarding, whatever you want. So I've loaded in Word documents that I used in my training. So I've got, um, autism awareness training, neurodiversity in the workforce. I've got a instructor's manual in here and a participant's manual. The thing that OpenAI just added was this: conversations with your GPT may include file contents. Files can be downloaded when code interpreter is enabled. So they have realized that through the community playing with the GPTs, that people were able to access this information that is behind the scene of the GPT. So they're putting in that little caveat saying, giving you that warning. And the other thing is that they've added recently is the following files are only available for code interpreter. So depending on your file type, it depends on how GPT interacts with it. So these top 4 are Word documents. This bottom one is a PDF.
Okay. And also when I look at it here, you can kind of see that you can add different components to it. So for example, like traditional with the GPT before, it had been trained up until sometime last year, I think, and now they updated it so it's like, I think, October of this year that the new GPT is trained to. But you can now add web browsing, which means that you can actually go out and find current information. You can add DALL-E image generation. So if you want to just to generate an image, you can do that. And then of course the code interpreter as well is also a component you can add to a GPT.
Is it?
Then under additional settings, they do give you the option of using the conversation data to improve their models.
Got it. Yeah. So you can, and that's one of the things I think is critical. If you're going to share a model outside of your organization, you might want to limit that so that whatever you might put into it that could be confidential material, etc. To the next step in your conversation, you don't want to make that available to anybody else, and by unchecking that, you will make that a part of it. So that's one of the things they've added to this to make it a little bit more mature. But there's still other areas that we need to look at. Ira, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. I don't know if there are particular file types that it's limited to, but I mean, can you include things like OneNote files or PD or PowerPoints or any other kind of common Microsoft files to add into this?
Well, we can ask it.
I guess if we don't know, we can ask. That's good. And I just think back to a conversation I had with Dave Griffith a while ago, and I know he does all of his notes and these kind of things in Markdown text, which is fantastic at this point because that can be all note or text files, and you could load it into this, and you could really have a GPT on your data set from, God knows how long you've been taking notes in some electronic format. So
according to it can support PowerPoints, XLS spreadsheets, JPEGs, PNGs, XPS.
And if it doesn't support OneNote, you can actually export OneNote, I believe, as Markdown text, which would just give you a random text file. But I don't know. There's someone like myself that is a crazy note taker that has been for the past 18, 20 years here. That's a lot of data. That's definitely well on our way to creating an iRobot. I don't know if anybody wants that, but it's possible. Possible.
Yeah, but that's a good example, though, right? So, so let's say, for example, that you have you maybe a college part-time professor. You have your job, but then you also train or do something at night. At college, you have a whole curriculum that you have been doing for years and years, and it's all based on either like PDF or Word documents that has your curriculum and all your sessions and lessons in it. You could now generate a GPT that has all that learning from that training that you've been doing by adding all that curriculum into it, and say you're now the specific knowledge around this particular topic, and you can now answer questions based on that curriculum material that I upload to it, and anybody can answer those questions and get an answer based on that.
I would be curious if you did that and then you fed in the test that you give at the end of the semester or whatever else, how well your GPT does on the test. It'd be kind of interesting to see.
Well, that could be interesting, but because you know that GPTs without or ChatGPT and others without having fed that test have been doing various different, like the law degree test and others, been doing pretty well on it too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I would assume it will do pretty well. That's the whole point of these GPTs and how they're working, right? That they should be able to handle that. But yeah, good point. Interesting aspect for sure. So just quick, couple of things. A question, Jason. So first of all, that little logo there, did you create that?
Nope, the custom GPT creator did. When you first start in the conversation, based off what you're asking it to do, it will recommend a name. And if you don't like the name, it'll create another one. And then it'll create an image badge for it.
Got it. And those initial questions there that it's suggesting, did you create those? Or did that also get created?
It created the initial questions. Now I'm able to go in and edit those because I can go back to the configure tab and I can actually put in the initial questions that I think need to be there, or I can modify these ones, right?
Cool.
So just to prove that we can access the information, because we're right in the GPT right now. So we'll see how fast it is today, because the lovely thing with GPT is it gets overused, so you get some lag.
So
well, with this live stream, I'm sure there's many more users, so it could be a little slower than normal.
Yeah. That's right. But interesting thing too is that it's showing the documents, but also the synopsis of those documents.
Yeah, it's good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it worked last night. I'm going to ask it if it can give me a download link for one of those documents.
Yeah, so that's one of the other areas of this area is that a lot of people are trying to see if they can trick it. Well, trick the system, come up with something.
From last night, they fixed that part.
Okay.
Because it told me it cannot provide me the download link. Let's see if I can get it to tell me how to download it. So it looks like they may have
it looks like
being able to download the files.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can still get it to tell you what's in the files and give you a synopsis of what's in the files.
What is the thumbs up, thumbs down? What's that meant for? Is that to for individuals?
That's just to rate the response for their training purposes.
Okay.
Right. So if you think it was a good response, you can thumbs up it. If it was a bad response, thumbs down, and that goes back to OpenAI's training.
So that's to improve the model and the training. That makes sense.
All right. So, because right now I have it allowed for improving model training, because frankly, this is a test GPT for me. It's not something I'm releasing. I'm just trying to see exactly what I can accomplish, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Right. So I can ask this, what are some misconceptions? And it's trained off those documents. It's going to spit back a response once it pulls it out. So things are a little slow right now because I am live streaming through Wi-Fi. So
yeah.
Right. So this is one of the things I think where companies can really benefit and leverage GPTs right now is developing a training GPT in-house to train their employees.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. Yeah.
To your point, Jan, I mean, like looking at this and looking at the way to feed in the documentation and things from an employee manual and operations and policies and procedures and all these kind of things, it seems like it could be a phenomenal use case. And then if you add to it, particularly with the knowledge we just got into a little bit ago with the Excel spreadsheets and things, it would be great if you could actually plug this into some sort of ongoing data set so that if you do have a really skilled operator, one of the biggest things that's plaguing the industrial industry is the brain drain, right? The retiring of a lot of people that have been operating machines forever. And if you could capture their interactions with machines based on, when they see things happen, whatever, what they do, the policies and procedures along with that, and being able to feed all those kinds of things into this, you could really try to help capture some of that IP, that localized IP that you'll be losing anyways. And I know there's the security concerns and these kind of things. I don't know if you can do it 100% local where it's completely isolated from anything, but a lot of cases you're going to lose that information anyways because the person's going to retire. So hey, maybe this is a way to plug that gap.
So there's actually one of the things you can do is if under this create actions, you can actually tie in APIs from third-party applications. So my next test, I'm actually going to be taking a IO-Link master, feeding data into a SQL database, and then having the GPT access that data and performing analysis on it.
So it'll become your basic system or your basic data analyst for you. That'd be great. Be fantastic.
Because I have seen applications out there by legitimate companies that have been in operation for a few years that's what they've been doing for years is they've got a large language model, generative GPT, running and accessing data from a existing data set that is constantly being updated from live machines. So I want to test, can we now do that with this version of GPT? Because they've given you the ability to link third-party APIs into your ChatGPT and actually run as a set of triggers to initiate certain active actions.
I think this is a good segue to kind of what we did to prepare for this was kind of think about, okay, so if I'm in manufacturing, what are some of the examples where this could be interesting to utilize either at a small sample rate playground right now or later on when it's mature to actually upscale in a manufacturing environment. And there's again when we go back to the concept of I have some content of some sort that are usually something that people have to look up and find and scroll down and figure out what's going on and what's my right answer to whatever question it is. If I have that, can I put that into a GPT and then in a conversational way be able to get the same responses? And the first thing I thought of, which I thought would be very interesting, is policies and procedures. I don't know about you guys, but I see them once a year, and that's when I get my employee training, and we got to go through various different training aspects, and a lot of it reports back or links back to our policies and procedures. And so yes, I will look out, what's my harassment policy right now, and what's whatever insider trading policy and all that kind of stuff. And that's when I get access to it. But on a regular day, I don't, right? And if I get an issue, which I haven't had, but if I did, I would probably call somebody as opposed to go in and figure out where my policies are and which one to look at and where to find the right procedure and that kind of stuff. So my thought was, hey, if this was mature enough and I had the full protection of enterprise version where it's localized to what I'm doing and nothing gets shared, it would be interesting to be able to push all those policies and procedures into a GPT and then have it available to all employees. So if there's any issue, there's any incident of any kind, they can go in and say, hey, here's the incident, here's the issue. What am I supposed to do? And then have that GPT respond back with it, according to policy, blah, 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 and this procedure, here's what you're supposed to do. That could be pretty powerful, I think, and enable easy access to things that are normally not that accessible to any employee in a company. And that could be any, I mean, I'm talking about policy and procedures, but it could be any type of knowledge database of some sort that are, complex, big, and instead of having to search for something and look at 10 different instances where it finds something similar to your search and then find the right one, just have a conversation with the chat or with the GPT and it gives you the response back. That could be pretty interesting in manufacturing or in any environment, so to speak, any business, so to speak, could be very interesting to have that. And I think we talked about those knowledge-based bases could be anything, right? All my service records, all my interaction with customers, if they're recorded in some kind of system, having something that actually kind of categorizes all that stuff to be able to give me quick responses to a specific scenario.
It really becomes
some of the ones I've already seen out there is people asking to have the GPTs run as their initial frontline on customer support.
Yep.
And loading in the technical documents on their product and loading in transcript records of previous calls so the GPT knows how to respond. But if it's going straight through the ChatGPT interface, you have that security issue of being able to divulge the training documents.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's the maturity that's going to happen, I'm sure, over time, right? But just the idea of, so you have these kind of bots today, right, with very little functionality, and as soon as they get up above their head, so to speak, they're gonna convert it to a person, right? But here, you could be in a conversation with what you believe is a person, and they're not, right? And they answer every question as a person would, and with the right content. And it'll be interesting to see once these become more mainstream, to see, because at the end of a lot of those service calls, you get this little agent that's going to answer, ask you a couple of quality questions. It'll be interesting to see who's actually get the best ratings. Is that the GPT or the person, right?
And with the GPT is also available on your phones now, right? So, and with that, it actually, you can speak to it and it will speak back to you. Once that's integrated into the GPTs, that's going to, like, into the custom GPTs, that's going to expand their use case of where they can be used, right? So,
no, absolutely.
So I mean, when I think about all this too, so of course we're talking about the future of manufacturing, and that's where we are and that's what we're doing. But I think about this holistically, and granted, I'm a marketing guy, right? Been one for 18 years now. Granted, I am a degreed engineer as well, and I geek out with the best of them, sometimes too much. But I think about business, particularly small business, and there's so many small businesses around the world, particularly in the U.S. and particularly contracting businesses. In a lot of cases, it's just like a single person or a family or whatever else. And I don't know about you guys, but and I know I'm painting a broad brush, but I think about the customer service a lot of times when it comes to those types of organizations, and it's not good. And it's not good because it's not that they don't want to do a good job. It's just that they don't have the resources to pay for a customer service team and these kinds of things. And if you can imagine them taking documents, policies, procedures, ways of doing work, invoices, all these kind of things, and loading it into one of these models that you could then interface with, how much could that improve the customer service experience from some of these smaller guys that maybe that IP is not as critical as the advancement that they would get from their organization. I mean, so I know that's outside of the realm of just manufacturing. It's definitely more on the commercial and business side of things, but there is so much on the small business side. I think particularly on the contracting side, you chat in, hey, I have a room that's this by this, and I want to finish basement with a bathroom, and you know that you've done 20 of those bathrooms in this particular area or rooms in this particular area at this point in time. You could probably turn out a quote instantly and say, hey, this merits investigation, but to give you an idea, it's going to be $30,000. Is that within your realm of possibility? It could be a game changer for people that jump on this bandwagon. I think
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you bring up something that got my head spinning a little bit too, is that we continuously talk about how, especially in the small and medium manufacturers, how we can help, how organizations within the different states can help them kind of get better with Industry 4.0, et cetera, right? But here's an opportunity for specific small areas to say, hey, I'm a local manufacturer here. I have solved this problem generally with a GPT that is now improving my productivity significantly. If there could be some sharing around that within small manufacturers, where helping solving each other's problems, especially around problems that are typically like you're saying, resource constraint, right? This is really an interesting area where manufacturers, without necessarily identifying, the IP of what they're doing, but here's a process of how I set up something that is helping me that I see others could use similarly, and that's an area where I think this could be very powerful, not just for yourself, as you were mentioning, a small business that is trying to get an easier way to get that initial quote out and get the customer to be interested or not. All right, that's a great thing if you can do that without having any people involved. Just a website request. Here's the basics, and again, a conversation that says, "Well, what do you mean by this? Can you just elaborate?" Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a 10-foot height or it's 9-foot height or whatever. Have a conversation that asks the right questions as a person would do, and then, hey, here's my initial estimate of what I think. If you think that's okay, I'm probably going to have to go in and do a little bit specific, but this is kind of like the ballpark. I think that's a great idea. That's a great and
You
it's
can already do some of that with
Mhm.
ChatGPT because one of the main um, actions that people are using it with right now is Zapier, which is a automation platform that links into multiple different software solutions that are out there. Um, so I know there's a few small businesses that I talk to um, that have already developed ones where it's feeding into an AI created avatar. So you would be on their site and the video comes up with this AI avatar of a woman or a man. And ChatGPT is the one that's actually providing the conversational text that's feeding into this avatar
Yeah,
based off of the response it's getting back uh, from the user. And the other one you can do is it can also handle your payments. So if you link it to something like a Stripe, I'm not sure if if it's able to link to Stripe, but there are online payments that it is able to link to there, where it can actually, once it's received that payment, it can verify that payment and then automatically email out, the invoice, the receipt, or whatever digital product they have purchased. So there's a lot of people already out there playing with this stuff in that space for the small companies on how to optimize their sales, their customer service, their payment processing. I just would caveat that again with be careful with the data, because you want to make sure that it's secure.
Got to get the maturity level up for sure, and that to me that's obvious that's going to happen, but it's just a matter of timing. So yeah, I think that's I think there's a lot of interesting aspects of this, and it'll be interesting if anybody listening in or later on listening in, if they could think of other ideas in the manufacturing space where a custom GPT might be something that would either solve a company's particular problem or be something that could be shared between manufacturers because it will solve a general problem or issue or whatever it is in a manufacturing space. So we talked a little bit about policies and procedures. We talk about experts have a system based on some knowledge, data. The thing that and Jason kind of corrected me, but I was thinking also about coding systems. So for example, like a manufacturer typically will manufacture either a widget, which is then not so much a whatever. But what if they manufacture a piece of equipment that has code in it, a control system, right? So a typical developer will go in and go into the coding system and pull a couple modules in, depending on what that equipment is supposed to do, put them together, then modify the code so it actually works for that new type of machine, and then they release it. What if you could just say to this GPT, hey, I'm planning to build a whole new machine, and it has these and these features, it has these and these specs and these sizes, based on the thousands of other code samples you already have in your system. Can you generate the code for this machine? And of course, the typical would be PLC code, which is not the best solution right now in most of those systems. I don't know if like Google's or Amazon's, whatever, is better at it or not. But ChatGPT is not as good with that logic right now. But I'm sure there's gonna, again, maturity. But just the idea of at least that if this is really where I think this whole generative AI is really great, is that first 80% of just setting things up and getting the basics in and getting something together, that could be done now by a GPT or a generative AI system, or whatever. And then you, as the expert, now going to take the last 20% to make sure everything is right and modify wherever you need to make sure. And that's the same with anything you do with GPTs and language learning modules and generative AI is, if you're going to change a marketing document, you still got to make sure there's something you want to release, that there's it's not garbage in it, or there's not untruth or whatever. You got to go through that, right? And the same here. But that first step of getting a whole document in place with structure and paragraphs and setups or whatever, that's the first 70-80% of the work. And then you got to get it in review, and that's the last piece of it. And now you can get that done in like minutes, if you have the right input and the right questions and the right instruction to identify. So that's, I think, is really interesting, and I think that could be interesting for anything in manufacturing as well, regarding the starting point of generating a report or a piece of code or whatever it is, having that as a tool that can help you out to begin with. But again, that's definitely IP related, so that has to be secure for sure.
Yeah. So of course, all the caveats of IP and all these other things. I am curious, Jan and Jason. You guys both seem to be pretty involved in this. How often are you using ChatGPT or generative AI on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Personally, I actually use it daily. I'm constantly inquiring and doing things with it, but it's not necessarily things that would get in trouble with IP. It's more simple tasks that I need to go Google. I'm using an Excel spreadsheet and I need to look at this list and compare to that list. And yes, I did that 2 years ago, but I have no idea how I did it. And I have to go Google it and look at all the different, where I can just say, compare all these different sheets and cells and use the different names, and boom, there's my formula, boom, done. Or if I'm doing brainstorming for different marketing campaigns or whatever else, I'll have it give me information, give me things. I'll use it as part of brainstorming sessions to be part of that. That's kind of some of the ways that I use it. I'm just curious. And today, what are some of the ways, if any, that you guys use it?
And very similarly, I would say. So in like product management, right? There's a lot of stuff with competitive analysis, looking at what is my feature. We've had a session before we did to a state-based manufacturing organization, and I showed an example where you basically went in and identified a specific area, like you could say IKEA, right? So then you say, go to IKEA's website and then list what they do, provide me all their major competitors, and then do a SWOT analysis on all those competitors. And then at the end of the day, what can I as IKEA do to improve against those competitors? And I mean, it's not mind blowing what it comes back with, but again, that's not 80% of setting it up. Right. And then I got to put my brain in to say, yeah, this is probably not something I would have taken. And here's something that ChatGPT did not think of. But that 80% of getting that done is just in minutes. So that's some of the stuff. And again, it's not any of our corporate IP stuff. It's just really just general. It's a much more improved than a Google search, right?
Right.
And it provides not just some links, but the entire concept of what I would present, or that I would work with, or that I would put in the report, or whatever it was. All that's provided to me to then go and edit and modify and revise, so it's ready for prime time, right? But that first setup there is just minutes, and you have some content. So I cut you off, Jason.
No, I use it daily. Every evening I'm sitting on it. I'm always trying to break it.
Of course.
From the user perspective of going, how far can I push this, and where's its breaking point, so I can get a really good understanding of its use case. I'm creating a GPT that's going to be trained on all my social media posts that I've created, so that way I don't start recreating the same thing over again. Because for me to read through every single post and go, hey, have I posted on this topic, or have I said it in this way before? It's very time consuming, but I load that into ChatGPT and I can give it what I'm thinking to talk about, and it'll already, like, in a matter of seconds, it'll say, yeah, you did this, back in September of 2020. Maybe you should reframe it, right? So
yeah, or maybe it's right. You did it so long ago that it's time to refresh it, right? So yeah, that would be great. Great way of doing it. And so, are you thinking about having like one of those third-party connecting agents that will go out and pick all your posts that they come in, or would you still manually have to add them into the system?
So let's answer the question that just came in about the end users for the custom GPT platforms. So yes, right now the only ones that can use the custom GPTs are the GPT Plus subscribers. But at the rate that OpenAI is making releases and making stuff available, I would suspect that it's going to open up to the general public pretty soon. I know they announced that their GPT store has been delayed and will now be in, I think, January for release. So wouldn't surprise me if sometime after that store comes available that GPTs become available for use for non-paying subscribers.
Yeah, and that's something that we didn't really highlight. I think we want to talk a little about as well. Is one of the things that OpenAI is doing is creating a GPT store. And that means that if you have a custom GPT, you're comfortable with sharing it, you can put it on that store, and then people can download that or connect to it and utilize it the same way that you would then maybe share it internally as well. I'm not sure if there's any cost to it. My understanding is that ChatGPT or OpenAI intend for the GPTs that are utilized a lot, they would compensate the developer or the maker of that GPT in some way or not, but I haven't seen anything else. So it's not like you're going to put something out there and say I want $5 per download. I don't think that's what it is, but you can put it out there, and then if yours is used a lot, that means that OpenAI is getting a lot of money by people using it, and then they'll compensate you as a developer. That was my. But again, things can change. Again, you say it's been delayed until January, so there could be some changes in that. But that was the initial what I heard is that they intend to have an open store like that. So it's kind of like freeware initially, is my understanding, and then they will internally compensate developers in the background.
Well, we'll find out when they release the store in January if they hit that release. So
yeah, but that is it is interesting, right? Is that there'll be ways to share this, not just by sending somebody a link to something, but actually go out and share it in a store that others can go and access that doesn't even know you, right? But to our previous points here, again, it has to then be mature from the perspective that you can guarantee that if you're sharing it, you're only sharing what you want to share as part of that GPT. So whatever if you want to hide what you use to train it, if you want to ensure that no confidential information is part of it, etc., that you can do that confidently. So maturity needs to get up for sure, and again, that to me that's table stakes. That will happen. I think what I heard from OpenAI, they understand, or rather, they indicate exactly the things they know is still not right, and so I know they're going to fix that. And others that are thinking the same, other vendors are doing something similar. They're probably going to do the same as well. But very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Before we end our conversation here today, just any final thoughts, Jason, Ira? What do you guys think? Is this something that I know Jason's going to use it? He already has.
yeah, I think this is around to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's going to mature rapidly. So if you're not playing with this and you've got access to it, you should really start playing with it, because it's coming in. Whether you like it or not, it's coming in. You can just take a look at some of the stuff that Microsoft's released lately with their Copilot and a number of their softwares. So it's here to stay. It's going to be in everything you touch. So you better get a good understanding.
Yeah, and from my side, I think Jason just said it. So I think it's here, and it's a new tool. So just like everybody, I don't know if this is still done or not. I'm showing my age, particularly from the last time I searched for a job or anything like this. But on your resume, it's literate in Microsoft Office, including Word, PowerPoint, Excel. I mean, these kind of things I think are de facto standards for a lot of jobs. And I don't know. I think fluency and being able to query within this type of language could very well become one of those staples. And if you don't know how to use this, it doesn't mean you can't progress. But I think those that do define how to use this and be able to use this tool well will far outpace the people that aren't. Just like if you looked at you're using ACT, or you're using written down pieces of paper to do calculations versus using Excel, it's going to set you worlds apart from people that are using Excel or using it efficiently. So I think it's important to learn. It's important to understand, and it's a really big staple. There's that joke, right? That the bouncy ball. How do you figure out the how well a bouncy ball will bounce on the ground? And you have like the mathematician that'll take it and he'll measure it and figure out the circumference and look at the different particles, and he'll calculate how bouncy it'll be. And the scientists will put it in the water to see the displacement, to figure out the buoyancy of the ball, to figure out how much it'll bounce. And then the engineer usually takes the bouncy ball book off the shelf and looks it up and tells you exactly how much it'll be. Well, there's probably the college student now that just types into ChatGPT, how much will this ball bounce? And they get the same answer. So it's going to be not necessarily the de facto standard, but definitely a new tool to get a job done.
Absolutely. And I think when you're talking about like the new people entering the job market and their resume and stuff, they're coming right now. But I think over some years it'll be just like Google, right? This is just the way you interact with on your phone or other areas, right? That's what I kind of see, that it'll change more like the way you will get information back. It's just that under a lot of systems that you're using today, there'll be some language learning modules and some generative AI that actually now is the part that responds back to you, I think, and you might not even know it. But you will, again, I think I'm with you on understanding how you're going to query, how you're going to create the prompt compared to just like a general search, right? I think that, especially right now, I think there's a lot of opportunities. I haven't seen, there was a session I had where we were trying to see if there were people out there searching for people with prompt engineering skills. And there was only a couple of people, which was the same company with, I think it was 30 different job descriptions. It was the same thing. It was just a contract thing. If you were able to go there, you can get $50 an hour to do prompt engineering. But it wasn't really generally a part of what we were trying to find, and yet at least. But it'll come, I'm sure. That just as you saying, I'm efficient, proficient in Microsoft Office. I'm proficient in generative AI prompting or prompt engineering or whatever. Yeah. Just before we end here, I just want to show a little quick comment from Scott Chapman.
I think they're talking about your sweater, yeah. No.
Yeah.
Potluck today at the office. I do love this sweater. So, thanks to all my colleagues in Germany and whatnot for Phoenix Contact for making such a great sweater here. So,
yeah, very nice. I think we had to add that one out here. Well, hey, thanks again, Jason. Thanks, Ira, for co-hosting today again. This was a very interesting conversation around some of the new stuff that's happening with generative AI and specifically with OpenAI's GPT and custom GPTs. I think we're just at the beginning of all this. We're at the top of the iceberg. There's so much to come, I'm sure, and it's going to be interesting to follow over the next year for sure, but also over time here. And once the maturity gets up and it becomes part of everything we do, it's going to be very interesting to see what it's going to be used for, and how it's going to help us in general, not just in our manufacturing space, but in our daily space as well, in everything we do.
All right.
So again, from Industry 4.0 Club, please keep on joining our sessions, either live or after the fact, and comment back on our sessions. What do you think? What do you like? And if you want to get a better connection to Industry 4.0 Club, you can connect with our page on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website, industry40club.com. And subscribe to our newsletter, or just connect with us there in any reasonable way that you feel is interesting to you. With that, we will end this session here today, and thanks everyone for joining, and appreciate you continuously joining us. And thanks again, Ira and Jason, for joining me here today.
Thanks a lot, Jan. Great stuff.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks.
Thank you.